a negative thing, but it is not. Monte Carlo is a very respected and special track. It is almost universally loved by both the drivers and fans of Formula One. A highly respected and knighted driver, Sir Jackie Stewart, said, Monaco brings the driver back down to earth. There are no formal instructions or run-off areas. One does not take liberties at Monte Carlo. There is nothing forgiving or benevolent about this track. There are clearly defined limits, and that's part of its appeal. Mistakes are very costly. The Israelites learned through the sacrificial system just how costly sin and mistakes are. An example of this is how Aaron, the high priest's two sons, Nadab and Abihu, brought unholy fire before the God, and they were immediately destroyed. Also, Uzzah died instantly when he touched the Ark of the Covenant. When Aaron's sons died, Moses said to them, "This is what the Lord said. This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'Through those who are near me, I will show myself holy. And before all the people, I will be glorified.'" Aaron and his sons were told explicitly what to do. Their limits were clearly defined. One Bible commentator wrote, "The first official priests got careless about following God's orders, or God's explicit orders. The severe punishment sent a strong message to other priests. One does not take liberties with God." In Acts 5, Ananias and Sapphira lied to Peter and died instantly. 7 chapters later, in Acts 12, after Herod delivers a public address, he listens to the people shout, "The voice of a God and not of a man." And while basking in their praise, the angel of the Lord struck him down because he did not give God the glory when he was eating on earth. The people present surely understood the strong message God sent out. This may all seem mean and arbitrary. It is not as if Moses was not careless. In Numbers 20, Moses shouts before the Israelites, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" I would imagine that God had looked at each other. We? Who's we? Moses is just taking God's place, literally acting as a vicar of Christ, like Herod taking God's glory, as if he and his staff have any power. How blasphemous. You would think that after looking at each other, the Godhead would say, oh no, he didn't. And the archangel would immediately descend from heaven and strike Moses down where he stands, and he'd be eaten by worms. Instead, God quietly speaks to Moses and Aaron, who was with him, and expresses his displeasure about what happened. And what about Peter? He denied Christ 3 times, even after being warned. Also, Christ said, "If you deny me before men, I will deny you before the Father." Uzzah was warned, and he still died when he touched the ark once. But after his resurrection, Christ appears to Peter to ask Peter if he still loves him. There is a difference between Peter and Uzzah, between Moses and Herod, and that difference is respect. Peter and Moses feared God. They revered and respected God. Moses' actions were indeed blasphemous and perilous, but they were not disrespectful. Herod enjoyed the praise in hearing that he was a god. Peter's actions were a result of panicking in the face of danger. Peter wept bitterly when he realized that he had succumbed to depression. Peter loved Christ. He desperately wanted to follow Christ. And although he made mistakes along the way, he allowed Christ to work with him. And Peter was held accountable, and in fact was chastised as a result. In the last book of John, When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon of John, do you love me more than these?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord. You know that I love you." And he said, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon of John, do you love me?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord. You know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not go." This, he said, to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." It was with God's help that Peter became the powerful apostle in the book of Acts. Conversely, as they did not respect the warnings that he received, he died as a result. Peter's work must have been incredibly difficult. Yet he was able to stay within God's clearly defined limits and avoid distractions. Now, another driver was asked how he could, as a young man in his late teens and early 20s, and obviously with all that money, could he avoid all these distractions? After all, Monaco is a very nice. There are celebrities all around, the great casino calls, and lavish parties are thrown throughout the night. And when the sun rises, beautiful women often bathe in the sun on the multi-million-dollar yachts that are in the water. David, who has conquered and been victorious at Monaco more than once, replied, "Fear of the trap is the thing that keeps distracted." Only fear of God can keep you from the distractions and temptations in your Christian walk. You must not be careless or take liberties with God. Monaco's champions will tell you that at some parts you'll be traveling at over 250 kilometers an hour, and only a magazine will fit between your tire and the barrier. So it is with God. He loves us. He allows us to be incredibly close to Him. We are told as Christians to abide in Him. However, there are clearly defined limits, and they are in His holy word. He is God, and only by grace we may abide in the great I Am. The stories of Nadab and Abihu, Ananias and Sapphira, and Herod's deaths remind us that God's infinite love does not make him an oversensitive limit. He has clearly defined limitations, and he takes disrespect very seriously. God's anger and wrath are very real and positive. Without it, God would actually become an enabler of sin. It also reminds us that we are the created, and He, the Creator, and to surrender the respect that is due Him. Pioneer Gabriel, John Renault, once said, "Danger is one of the attractions of flight." A fascinating statement. On the surface, it would seem to be simply the words of a thrill seeker. However, they are the words of a man who knows truth about his own weaknesses, and that he may not be successful. Whether it is mountain climbing, or competitive sports, or Sudokus and crosswords, there is an element of fear involved. This fear is a result of an acknowledgement that we may not be able to meet the challenge that is before us. It can also be simply what is before us is greater than what we can do. Moses' curiosity was aroused when he saw the burning bush that it wasn't consumed. But when he drew near, God spoke to Moses, and he was afraid afraid to look at God. Moses felt fear, but he was not terrified. Terrified people cannot hold an intelligible conversation with someone who is terrifying them. Only escape is on their mind. Moses' fear came from a realization that he was a weak man in the presence of a very powerful God. In fact, the conversation that he had with God reveals just how incapable Moses felt. Isaiah had a similar experience with God in the 6th book or the 6th chapter of Isaiah. I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the thresholds shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke.